Thank you so much for joining us. You're watching All Angles. I'm Dion Jax Miller. So, should the Gun Court Act be amended? That's one of the holy book questions that have come up since the Joylan Silvera murder case has been before the courts. Going to be talking about that with my guest in studio. We have Senior Attorney at Law Leonard Green. Also with us, Mikel Jackson, the Executive Director of Jamaicans for Justice, and Kemoy McEachron, also Attorney at Law, former prosecutor, host of Morning Agenda on sister station Power 106. And joining us via Zoom, we have Damian Mitchell, Communications Strategist and former Integration Editor at the Jamaica Gleaner. The Gleaner, of course, is part of the RJR Gleaner Communications Group, to which this station also belongs. Before we get to our guests, though, let's go to this overview by Kemon White.
Former People's National Party MP Joylan Silvera is facing a murder charge in connection with the death of his wife Melissa Silvera, who was found dead at their St. Andrew home on November 10, 2023. On January 29, 2024, when the matter was brought before the gun court for the first time, members of the media and the public were barred from the courtroom. In response to public outcry, the judiciary explained that the media blackout is required under Section 13 of the Gun Court Act. The Act states that, in the interest of public safety and public order, gun court proceedings must be held in camera, meaning no one may be present except the judge, court staff, security personnel, the accused, attorneys, witnesses, and any other person the court specifically authorizes. As a result, journalists and the public are not automatically allowed to attend. The Act also gives the court the power to restrict publication of trial details, such as names or identifying details of witnesses. The court may also prevent any reporting on gun court cases other than the names of the accused, the offense charged, the verdict, and the sentence without prior approval. The exclusion of the media has sparked public controversy, with media organizations and civil society groups arguing that the relevant provisions of the Gun Court Act undermine transparency and the principle of open justice. Reporting for All Angles, I'm Kemon White.
Okay, so why is this a big deal? Is this a big deal? So, and just before I bring in my guests, in doing my reading for the program, I came across some of the old stories, So the Jamaica Observer, for instance, had reported on the Silvera's wedding, and the headline of the story was Silvera Bells. And it spoke about the gorgeous dress she wore, the fantastic ceremony, the wonderful reception, the song the couple danced. And I'm saying this to say that there are a couple of different things going on here, as I'll ask Damian to expand on in just a little bit. You have the human interest side of it, in terms of the allegation of murder in a situation where 2015 it was, December 12, 2015, you had this absolutely gorgeous wedding taking place with a whole heap of Tapanaris guests. Former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson was reported to be one of the guests, and then 7 years and 11 months later, she's found dead in her sleep. There's this outpouring of grief, and commiseration to her husband. Then we hear of the autopsy, bullet fragments found in her body. In December 2023, his attorney, Peter Champagny, says he's not a suspect in the matter. January 12, 2024, she's buried, and Silvera remembers his wife in this absolutely heart-rending, beautiful tribute, calling her the heartbeat of their family, tribute that was read by his mother. And then January 18, he's charged with her murder. So as I said, there are a couple of different things going on here. There's a human interest story, but there's also the story of a former MP, a politically connected person, charged in a situation in which in a country in which there's a lot of skepticism about the justice system. And Damian, let me bring you in first and ask you to comment on this from a news perspective. Why would we cover this? Why should the public be apprised of what is happening here?
Yeah, I think you started out pretty well. So there is the matter of the human interest, and there is a huge issue of the public interest. Who is this person, and why should the public generally want to hear all that's going on? I think to a great extent, the matter of public interest is very acute, And I think to a great extent to have a former legislator, a former member of the House of Representatives in court makes it that much more important. And I'm sure we'll discuss later on the issue as to what the law says and whether there are prescriptions or proscriptions. But to a great extent, I really do believe that it is time for a review of the Gun Court Act, so much so that it will be the norm for there to be open court accessible to everybody, as opposed to the exception which now exists.
Okay, and Kemoy, former newsman turned lawyer, is there a public interest here?
Certainly.
Put aside what the law says, because I know we're going to get to that.
Certainly, without a doubt, there is. In fact, I would frame it as there are two conflicting public interest issues. So we have public interest in terms of open justice principle, and we have the public interest policy mischief of the legislation. That public interest mischief is to protect witnesses. And so the court or the parliament, firstly, has placed this restriction on access in reporting of matters in the gun court for the purpose of protecting the public as well, protecting witnesses. It is believed, based on the nature of the matters which take place in the gun court, that witnesses will be fearful, for example, for coming forward because their names and what they say is going to be published. And therefore, what we have colliding here, two public interests conflicting, and that's what makes it so interesting.
Okay, a whole heap to come to in that in a moment. Nearly at the break, so Michael, let me bring you in quickly. Public interest, as you see it?
Absolutely. There's the public interest because people just want to know because of who is involved, not in the traditional meaning.
That there's a difference between public interest and what the public interested in.
Absolutely, which is why I'm making that distinction. But there's the public interest and the principle of what open justice means. The principle of understanding that there needs to be trust in the system so that there is not the perception of the two Jamaicas, which you see those comments being made online. What's up about this person? Especially given the conflicting accounts leading up to the charges being laid. Given right now, there is murder, manslaughter, the reasons behind shifting from manslaughter. What does provocation mean? Then people say two Jamaicas.
We're going to come back right after this. Remember our WhatsApp line, 2540693. Soon come.